Larry Wheels is one of the biggest social media influencers in the past 5 years, and for good reason. I mean, he posts some of the most insane lifts I have ever seen. Today, I'm gonna be looking at the strength program he put out on Generation Iron and talking, is this something that could work for you, or is there something that maybe you could be doing better? We're gonna go through everything, but first, let's talk about who Larry Wheels actually is. According to this article, he started training to avoid being pushed around. He grew up in the Bronx and didn't really have a whole lot growing up. Thankfully, this has really turned around for him, and he's built an incredible business, an incredible personal profile off the back of his lifts. And these lifts are gargantuan. Now, his best powerlifting meet, he squatted 810, benched 610, and deadlifted 855. He's benched all the way up to 660 pounds or 300 kilos at 140 kilos. These are properly world-class numbers. He's also dabbled in strongman. He went to the log lift world championships by Giants Live and lifted 202 kilos. That tied him for 5th. For reference, I won World's Strongest Man in 2023. My best log lift ever is 213 kilos. He's not that far off in terms of strength, and he is way undersized, and his body fat is way lower. Most strongmen would really desire to look like Larry. Now, he's also dabbled in bodybuilding, competed in bodybuilding, and he's also dabbled in arm wrestling, a whole bunch of different things, and might be the most versatile strength athlete on the planet in terms of everything that he's tried to do at quite a high level. Now, let's talk about this program that Larry has put out. First of all, if you're wondering what program might be best for you, in the description, I've put a link to a questionnaire to different programs that I sell, so you can find out what might be the perfect program for you to go on and buy. But let's talk about Larry. So he's got this 3-day split: Monday squat, Wednesday bench, and Friday deadlift. Off the bat, I'm thinking this is a very, very low intensity for upper body work, only doing that once a week. Now, let's dive into these days themselves. The one compliment I will give is, as you get stronger, you have to train less often. Normally, for elite, experienced powerlifters and strongmen, 4 times a week is adequate. I do 5 because I just frankly love the gym. But 4 is adequate. 3 might be a little bit undershooting it, but maybe these workouts themselves are huge volumes. First is squat day. So Monday squat day, he does reverse banded back squat, 3 sets of 1. Now, I think accommodating resistance is good, and he says he uses this to feel heavy weight on his back without it impacting him in the hole so much. But it does make it hard if you're peeking into a competition to know exactly how much you might be capable of lifting on the day. You would have to get some sort of fish hook, pull down on the bands, find out how much they're unloading you at the bottom, and try to figure out in between. Now, I say that that's a problem only because that's the only squat or squat variation he does all week. 3 sets of 1. Then he does 3 sets of planks to failure and 3 sets of glute ham raises to failure. Now, 2 bodyweight exercise, maybe he adds a little bit of load to these, but 2 low load exercises backing up super heavy squats. Well, really, with 1 squat day a week, this is an extremely low volume for legs, especially with it being the only squat day of the week. And the accessories are extremely low load. A max plank for time and GHR for max reps, is that actually gonna translate to a better squat? I don't think so. Will it translate to a slightly healthier low back with the GHRs? Yes, I do believe so. And plank can help with core strength, but according to the research, if you put in intramuscular EMG, number 1 exercise for core strength is deadlifts, and number 2 exercise for core strength is squats. So doing more core work on top of the heavy squats you've already done probably doesn't make a whole lot. Now, for an elite powerlifter, I would want to see somewhere around 10 working sets for lower body compound movements per week at an intensity of 8 to 9 at the end stage of peaking. Now, this is a general criticism of Larry and really of anyone on social media, myself as well. Sometimes there's so much urge to post big lifts all the time that you are pushed a little bit harder than you want to. It won't really get the clicks if you do a smooth set of 3 or a smooth set of 2 with a couple left in the tank. So Larry does push to very, very high intensity on a regular basis, and we'll find that out more in the program. But when someone comes along and trains with him, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. Check out this arm wrestling video. Check out this incline bench press video. And there are a couple of other examples, but I'll spare you those for right now. That is the squat day. Next is the bench press day. Similar to squats, he starts with 3x1 of the movement. So 3x1 bench press. I think this is really good, practicing up to a big max. Then he goes to a yoke push press, 3x5. The 3x5 is a good protocol, but yoke push press, and for those who don't know, a yoke is a stable bar. Usually you carry this on your shoulders with weight dangling below. When you overhead press something like this, the inherent limiting factor is going to be stability to an extent. And whilst training for stability is quite useful, if we're looking for maximum strength, this is not the best way to go. You're still gonna get the requirement to stabilize if you used a barbell or an axle. After his yoke push press, he goes to 3x15 V handle seated row. And I actually really like this because a strong back is necessary for good pressing. You'll never see a good bench presser with small traps, for example. That really creates the foundation. When we do rowing exercises, you never want to do sets of 3, 4, 5 because it's just so hard to use your actual lats and back when you're doing this. You'll find once it gets heavy, you'll start to roll over your shoulders, a lot of biceps come into play, and you're just trying to move the weight. When it comes to accessories, we're not thinking as much about moving the weight as we are trying to replicate either a feeling or a muscle feeling that you might want to accomplish in a main movement itself, in this case, the bench press. He finishes this up with 3x15 cable external rotations. And I have authority to say this. I have my master's degree in clinical exercise physiology. I exercise people with injuries for a living. And this is not hugely useful. If we think of a very small movement like that, the amount of load compared to the amount of load that you were just using when you were bench pressing and rowing, unless you're injured and training a specific part of the rotator cuff, it's probably not going to be useful, full stop. If it's useful at all, it might be early in the workout as a warm-up. The one thing that's missing from this upper body day, because it is the only upper body day, there's no sort of overhead pulling. And for me, the boxes I would want to tick are horizontal push, vertical push, horizontal pull, and vertical pull. These are just movements that we should be able to do to be strong and robust. And there's no vertical pulling whatsoever in this entire program. Now, like I said, this is a really good day overall. We're just missing some overhead pulling. There are 9 hard working sets, and that's a pretty good place for a single workout. We wrap this up with deadlift day, and this is where there's the most left to be desired. His deadlift day is just working out to one maximum set of either 1 all the way up to 10 reps. And this is not a good prescription to work on any sort of weakness or technique or muscular imbalance or anything, really. It's just hard work. Will this work? Absolutely. Just doing one really maximal set, it'll work to a point. But that point will come and there will be a day of reckoning, which is you're not as strong as you were before, or you've come up with some sort of injury. Now, to go over this total workout, the total number of working sets of this routine is 13 throughout the total week. For someone of Larry's caliber, this is just not going to get the job done. He also does singles, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, heavy singles. And when we train for strength, we're training the nervous system, and the nervous system needs recovery. There's no way that you could do this and not start to burn out after a very short period of time. Now, I'm gonna talk about some caveats in a minute, but the other things is that this workout could get you strong for the last couple of weeks of a powerlifting block, but you will plateau. And this is what I'm trying to say. This could get you strong for a short period of time as a hyper compensation, as a only focus on heavy max lifts and basically omit all useful accessories. But without using accessories to build up your base, you're not gonna see really good long-term progress. For example, you do a squat day, I would love to see a leg press in there, a split squat of sorts, and let's say you're doing really heavy singles and your nervous system is fried, well, go to some sort of muscular work where you're going on a single leg, the load is less than half of what you were doing before. Your legs are still gonna get a good workout, but they're not going to be, you're not gonna be continually frying the nervous system so you can't back up and train the next day. Now, for an experienced lifter, I think that a total of 20 to 25 compound working sets per week in a heavy strength phase with the RP on average sitting around 8 is probably appropriate for most of your sets and the vast majority of your work. Of course, as you get close to competition, you might pull that back slightly, but with this program, you're just gonna get out of shape, frankly. You're gonna get out of shape. You might get strong for a short period of time, but it's not gonna be a very high return. I'll talk about that in a second and why being in shape is important. All in all, training is highly individual and there are different things that people adapt to. Obviously, this worked for Larry if he used it. The if is a massive caveat. If he did, it would have been for a short period of time to focus on something very particular, possibly 2 or 3 weeks out from a powerlifting meet, for example. This would not be a crazy program because all you're doing is putting all of your eggs into the squat, bench, deadlift heavy basket. Now let's talk about why being generally fit and why doing higher volumes are useful for strength, because in the end, the best way to prepare for a 1 rep max is to do more 1 rep maxes. If we go all the way to aerobic fitness, you're gonna get increased vascularization and increased ability to recover between reps, between sets, and between workouts. So aerobic fitness is gonna be tied to the total volume that you can do when you train. And the only time that aerobic fitness actually interferes with your strength is if you're at genetically maximal strength or close to it. If you haven't been training very consistently, purely for strength for 5 years, you're not gonna be in the category where this interference effect is gonna have a huge impact unless you're training aerobic fitness so hard that you can't back up and train because your legs are tired and you as a whole are tired. Now, if we walk that back one from aerobic fitness to, let's say, muscular endurance. Well, muscular endurance is gonna be helping you to grow your muscles for one. Now, muscular endurance is 15 plus reps. Not really the prescription for strength training, but for small times of the year, I would say that's a very good way for someone like myself to train, because we are going to condition the muscles to increase their enzymatic activity, to increase uptake of oxygen from the bloodstream, so that that muscle can now do more and recover quicker. Let's say I work on my muscular endurance and then I have a 90 seconds log press for reps. Well, that 10 seconds that I might take to rest between those last 2 reps, that might just be enough for the muscles to soak up the oxygen, for me to get my oxidative capacity back, for me to replenish a little bit of carbohydrate stores, and for me to be able to work with replenished ATP again, where a less fit person might not. If we go to now classic hypertrophy phase, 8 to 12 reps, this is now perfect base building for strength. The number one correlator to your maximal strength is going to be the cross-sectional area of muscle. This doesn't necessarily happen when we talk about high level, let's say, bodybuilders. If you want to check out my critique on bodybuilders and their strength, check out that video here. But if you increase cross-sectional area of muscle, you are very likely to increase your 1 rep max. I always say, this is like the size of the engine, and when you do your strength training, that's when you start putting gas in. That's when you start with the afterburners. But the size of the engine is going to be the ultimate limiting factor. Now, when we work in the muscle building range, which is sort of a fallacy, but let's call it 8 to 12, you're going to be doing higher volumes, close to failure. And those are really the 2 things you need to build muscle well. Again, if you want to build muscle, I have a program for that in the description. Same if you want to get strong and power lift. Now, that is why you might do hypertrophy work. Then we talk about power work and why might you want to do power work. And it's a whole separate conversation around your ability to express strength quickly and how useful that can be when moving load. But all of that previous work, your muscular endurance, your aerobic fitness, your hypertrophy work, is all going to be shown and expressed when you go to your higher volume, your lower volume, higher intensity strength work. Now you've got this big engine, you've got this large ability to recover, and you can now exploit that. That's why I'm not a fan of this program as a long-term solution to strength. It's not something that's gonna help to build your base whatsoever. I would love to know what you guys think. Please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let me know if you want me to do more of these exercise reviews, exercise critiques. Thank you very much for watching. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind, and we will catch you in the next video.